Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Enhance International's second in a series of webinar focused on employee burnout, how to identify, address, and combat it to enable your scalability and growth. We have our two guest panelists this week, Gernaey and Christina DiBernardo. Sorry, Christina. We appreciate all of you taking the time to attend today's webinar and evolving your resilient enterprise. EIG has over 100 webinars. They're up on our website and on our YouTube channel, and you're welcome to view those at any time. Thank you again for joining, and we hope that your family are healthy and safe. This is the second in the series of webinars. Our first webinar was on integrated onboarding and is available on the website. And our webinar today, of course, is addressing employee burnout, something that's really hitting hard now, especially when we don't have enough employees out there for all the jobs to be fulfilled, and people are being asked to do more with less. And we are in a year of stagnation as an economy. So everybody's kind of hurry up and wait. So it's a very timely topic. We're very excited to talk about it, and Christina and Jackie to share their best practices on addressing employee burnout. Our next webinar probably will be in June on increasing employee retention, which relates to this overall series. Again, my name is Jim Vries, founder and managing partner of Enhance International Group. I will be today's host, and please do keep the chat active and provide your feedback in the chat and in the poll EV. Today we have joining us a veteran of talent management, Jackie Gernaey, CEO of 7StarHR. Jackie, a few words of introduction about yourself.
Hi, guys. I hope you love this woman, and I hope you're not seeing anyone with their head on the desk, coffee on the floor, and everything going on. But let me tell you a little bit about me. I have been involved in coaching small businesses. I've done over 10,000 hours prior to starting 7StarHR. I came from a corporate background where I was president of a 25 million, 200 employee company. And we saw all sorts of push as we were focused on trying to get 25% income before tax. And the amount of burnout was unbelievable because we were constantly squeezing people to do more and cutting people to try to get that before they luckily sold us to someone else.
Thanks, Jackie. Christina, founder and director of Expressive Connections and Mental Health Counseling. A few words of introduction.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to be here. And the last name is DiBernardo. That is the Irish pronunciation. Just kidding, of course. And I'm really excited to be here. This topic is something that I have a lot of knowledge and expertise about, but also a lot of passion behind as a mental health professional, and seeing how burnout affects everybody. It doesn't matter what industry you're in or what position you hold. And a little personal things about me: I've got dogs, I've got cats, I've got humans that I love very much, who all are very much a part of my support network to help me mitigate burnout in my own life. And they help me set an example for my team as well. So I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Jackie. Just a few words about myself. Again, Jim Vries. My core belief is that success starts with the individuals and that untapped potential of all of our employees, but not bringing them to the point of burnout, of course. But every employee matters, And sometimes we forget that when we're going for our goals, and we're not looking at the whole picture, and we're not looking at everything from an ecosystem perspective. Everybody wants to do a great job. There's nobody who goes to work and says, I want to do a bad job. Everybody wants to do the best they can. But pushing employees to the point of burnout can be unintentional. You get caught up in the moment of hitting your goals. And that's what we're here to talk about, is how to enable our employees to be all they can be in their job and help them in their success in their life and in their careers. All right, so thank you for filling it in. Sorry about that. We just had a power outage. So the deliverables today is, of course, learn the best techniques to identify potential burnout. Power surges could be one. Just kidding. Review the best metrics to track recovery to burnout, and understand the financial benefits of reducing burnout, bringing it to the bottom line. And then how do you use AI? There's a lot of AI techniques out there today, and we'll have a slide on that. And then what actions you can take now throughout the webinar. And we encourage everyone to interact as often as you would like into the chat power withstanding that it's on. With a few words, Jackie.
Well, this is Christina, so
Oh,
I'll get.
Christina.
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Christina.
I'm a little
You discombobulated, Jim.
I'm discombobulated. All right, Christina.
Well, as Jim introduced me before, my name is Christina DiBernardo. I am the founder of Expressive Connections Mental Health Counseling. We are a mental health and wellness and counseling firm that provides individual, group, couples, and family counseling services to children as young as 3 and individuals all the way up into adulthood. We're helping people connect with themselves in new and more improved ways to become the most empowered versions of themselves and the most connected family dynamic that they can possibly have. We provide individual counseling services. We provide biofeedback and neurofeedback services, which is a whole webinar in and of itself. And we also do community and organizational corporate wellness. We specialize in trauma, stress management, anxiety, depression, self-harm, burnout reduction, and mental health and wellness education overall. We work with organizations such as Jump Trading and Hitachi, and we work with nonprofit organizations like Girl Scouts of America and Long Island Coalition Against Bullying and Long Island Prep. And we also work with schools as well. And although it was unintentional, I must comment on the power outage, and it was almost a symbolic representation of burnout, because one of the things that I see, and I think Jackie, you can attest to this as well, is people will continue to go, and they don't realize and they don't think that they're going to crash or that they're going to reach this state of burnout until all of a sudden they do, until all of a sudden the power goes out. And that's the power within our body. That's the power within our brains and our minds. And you don't really ever see it coming. It's just one day the switch goes off. And so this is something that is really important for us to have a conversation about. And so again, I'm glad that you guys are here today to take the time to learn about this and hopefully implement some of the things that we talk about today in your own organizations and in your own personal lives.
Thanks, Christina. And Jackie?
So 7StarHR is a full service HR company. We actually have partnered with Christina's company to provide specialized care, mental health coaching when it's beyond what an HR person should be handling. We start everything by doing something called an HR MRI assessment. And from that, we determine what's going on with compliance, best practices, employee engagement, and some of the tools that are available, handbooks and so forth, to help you. So training is a big part of what we do. Christina is involved with us in the mental health portion of that training, burnout training. And I think one of the things, and Christina was talking about this, is that we who own businesses look, except probably Christina, who's probably got the best eye on burnout because of what she does. But we look at stress, and we're going to be talking about stress versus burnout a little later, but we look at stress and think, hey, that's just normal. Stress is totally normal. And there are some stresses that are good and normal, but we don't stop and think, have we gone beyond stress to burnout? And I think that is something that hopefully this will help you take a look at and kind of understand that stress isn't just stress. It can be really something much greater.
Thanks, Jackie. And just a few words about EIG and what we do. Of course, we're the we view ourselves as the master integrator for all our partners, and getting them to do work together to give you, the client, a 1 + 1 = 3 across your ecosystem. Of course, today we're talking about burnout, and that is part of your vision and brand. If you look under strategy, vision, brand, intrinsic value, and operating structure, your people are that. It's so important that that is running well and driving your company in the right direction. And so your employee performance plays a big role in that. And obviously burnout would falter to you not to be able to finish the race. So this is a very good analogy of, when you're training for a race, you can burn out before the race. They always say, can the racers peak at the right time? The Boston Marathon was just this week, I think, and they always talked about runners peaking. Are they peaking at the right time, or are they burned out and are not able to get that perfect time that they're looking for? So again, it all ties together. Our agenda today.
Jim,
Yeah,
before
go
we
ahead.
go on, there related to your graphic here, there is a reason why we call people human capital.
Yeah.
And so we need to, as you said, each person in our team is important and important to the overall well-being of our companies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll see a lot of statistics here in a few minutes about how it can be detrimental to your company, not treating people as humans. To your point. Great point, Jackie. So today we'll talk about the causes and symptoms. So how do you see it? How do you find out that it may be happening where you're in your company? We'll talk about leading indicators and the effects of burnout, and we'll look at some of the new AI techniques that can help you and your company discover burnout. And then also AI can help alleviate repetitive tasks that leads to burnout too. So you get a twofer there. There's 5 steps to mitigating employee burnout that we put together, including the assessment that 7-Star has, and Christina's company has worked on to identify burnout, not just in your employees, but in your company overall. What's the overall attitude of burnout? And then Christina will share with us a case study, and then we'll link it to the bottom line with some financials. So with that, we'll get started. Christina?
Our intention today is to have a conversation about burnout that is engaged with all of you. So please feel free to share your own insights, things that you've seen, things that you've recognized, whether that be within yourself, your organization, or other organizations that you've ever worked at prior to this, or what have you, with us as an active and engaged participant in this webinar. This is a conversation, and this is a topic that, as I mentioned before, impacts all of us, regardless of industry and regardless of position. And Jackie, you mentioned something earlier about humanity, which just really ties into the quote that's here, that burnout is what happens when you try to avoid being human for too long. And most people, when I talk to them, look at burnout and will say something along the lines of, I have failed, or I'm a failure. And burnout is not a sign of failure. It is the indicator, capital THE, the indicator that something is wrong and that something needs to change, that something needs to shift, that without that shift, we're going to stay in this state of burnout and we're not going to see the progress that we want to see in ourselves, and we're not going to see the progress that we want to see in our organizations and in the people that we employ.
I think, Christina, also, this is good to think, to look at and understand that while corporations can do or not do things that may relate to burnout, burnout is a personal thing that happens to individuals. And they can cause, burnout can be caused by their relationship with what's going on around them. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Burnout is something that can be both personal and communal. You know, they say the expression misery loves company, right? It's I'm not necessarily talking burnout as misery. It is miserable experience. But burnout is one of those things that if it impacts company culture, it spreads, because when somebody new comes in and they look at all of the people that surround them and they are all burned out, they are almost being set up to follow in that path, or they're being set up to not be retained by the organization because they see the company culture and say, nope, that's not for me. I'm going to get out of here. And burnout is something that can happen when you have individuals within your organization who don't understand how to properly manage stress and how to properly manage their own self-care, their relationship to their organization, and things going on outside their lives. So this is a good segue into talking about what burnout is and comparing it to stress. So burnout is your body and your brain's way of saying, I have reached my limit. I am done. It is a state of pure exhaustion, and it is caused by prolonged exposure to stress. Stress is something separate, and stress can be, not always, but can be an leading indicator to burnout. Stress, like Jackie was mentioning before, is something that everybody does experience. It's actually a very normal and necessary system within our body. It's what lets us know that your stress response is your body's way of letting you know that something is wrong. And more specifically, it's your body's way of letting you know that you're in danger. Stress is the fight or flight response. If you know of the flight or flight response, please comment in the chat. Maybe you're somebody who's a fighter. Maybe you're somebody who has to, avoid and walk away from that. Or maybe you are somebody who freezes, but either way, your fight, flight, or freeze response is your body's way of letting you know that you're in danger. The trick is that your body can't tell the difference between I am in a life-threatening situation, like I'm walking across the street and about to get hit by a car, and I have an unrealistic deadline to meet for this project for my job, whether that's set by a client, whether that's set by a supervisor or boss. But your body doesn't know the difference. Your body is just feeling that same influx of hormones and increased heart rate and all of that stuff that affects us negatively. And when we experience that response too often, or when that response never turns off, that leads to a power outage. That leads to your body shutting down and saying, I've reached my limit and now I can't do it anymore.
And I want to point out that there isn't, all stress is not bad. I mean, I'm like, OMG, I need to get this done. I have a deadline. It may be a realistic deadline, and that stress may push me to get it done now. So not all stress is bad. We're talking
Yes.
about stress that is really a heavy stress on people, a
Thank you.
non-healthy stress.
Thank you for making that distinction. Stress can be positive. Stress can come from getting a promotion. Stress can come from getting married, from moving into a new home that you're really excited to move into. And stress can be a really great motivator. A personal example is I love public speaking and I love doing presentations like this and providing this kind of information. And putting all of my own thoughts together, putting together my notes, this presentation with Jim and Jackie, came with it a motivational kind of stress because I am motivated to be here and I want to be here. And it still came with the same stress that gets my heart rate going and changes my breathing a bit. But there are ways that I have learned to manage how my body responds to that so that I can channel the motivational energy that it gives me and not the kind of energy that causes me in my own negative stress response to shut down. It looks like we have a question in the chat. Do you see people who are deep into stressful situations suffering, but they don't recognize it themselves? Thank you, Mark. That's a great question. All the time. One of the biggest challenges that I hope we can address today is helping you guys recognize what the signs of stress and burnout are, the symptoms of those two things are, in order to then not only recognize them in yourselves, but then maybe even recognize them in the people that you manage, the people that you supervise, the talent that you bring into your organization. I know that there was one or two of you who I believe your role in your organization is talent management and acquisition. And so hopefully being able to recognize those signs within yourself, have that mindful awareness, and then be able to replicate that and teach that to others. And that's one of the things that Jackie and I do in our burnout reduction program. This one of the main parts of the educational components of that program. So yes, that's a great question. Thank you for asking.
I think we need to move on to the next slide. We'll take questions as we move along.
So you can see here in these burnout statistics that there are bad causes of effects of stress. And you may either see this if you've got a lot of people that are missing days from work. It should start to ring a bell. Hey, what's going on here? We also still are recovering from the pandemic and all of the changes that have occurred, and people are either coming back to work or working from home now, and big change causes stress that can lead to burnout. And it talks about that. We've got 61% of remote workers who may now find it more difficult to unplug. One of the things that we looked at initially was everyone said, ooh, the economy is more productive because people are working from home, and in 2020 and 2021, that showed to be the case. But as time has gone on, the last 5 quarters has shown a reduction in productivity across the board. And this is one of the reasons, right? They can't unplug, all of those kind of things leading potentially to burnout.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle change that how do you separate work from home life, and not being able to do that,
They're screaming.
Yeah.
You've got to get you're talking to your boss, You
Yeah.
know, the cat walks in front of you.
The dog's barking.
The dog's barking. Yes.
And the somebody's at the door delivering a package that has to be signed.
Right.
Right. Or maintenance has to get in if you rent an apartment, or maintenance has to come in and fix the air conditioning. There's
Yeah.
so many different things going on, and when you're home, it does make it difficult to separate what's going on. And one of the things that I talk about all the time, if you are a remote worker, you have to have a designated work zone where nothing else infiltrates that space, and where your work zone infiltrates nothing else. Don't work in your bedroom. Don't work in bed. Don't answer
Yeah.
emails in bed. Don't even work at the dining room table if you can avoid that as well, because that's where you eat, and hopefully that's where you're spending time with family. If you are a person with family that lives with family, it's important to separate it. But really, something to be mindful of is just how much burnout costs. This isn't one of those things where we're saying, it's a public health crisis and please take care of it. We've got nothing behind it. This is an epidemic. This is a public health crisis. And it doesn't just cost, time and energy, it costs money. Burnout costs employers, the second piece here, almost $10,000 per employee per year in absenteeism and lost productivity on average. And of course, that depends on industry. That depends on the position that person works in. It's going to cost less money for an entry-level position and more money for somebody in mid-level management and up. But it costs hundreds to thousands of dollars every single year per employee. Turnover.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the things we ask in our assessment is, are your employees using nearly all their sick days? And that's something that is a good indicator, right, Christina?
Absolutely.
Which we talk about here, and because burnout are 63% more likely to take a sick day.
Yep.
They just are need to escape from what it is. So
something else I like to ask is, and this is more in conversation, not in assessment, but maybe we add it to the assessment, is how many of your employees are using all of their sick days? How many of them are using either none of their vacation days, or using their vacation days in placement of sick days because they've run out of sick days?
I think we did ask that, Christina. So yeah. Absolutely, because those are real good indicators, guys, that something's going on.
So we have two questions in the chat here. The first is, I very often experience burnout. My brain just shuts down. I cannot think anymore. I feel exhausted and often have headaches. What is the best way to deal with this?
So that's actually something that we're going to talk about a little later in the presentation. If we can get to that a little bit later, Lewis, I want to address that, but we'll come to that a little later.
Okay, so I think this other question also from Erica we'll hit a little later. Okay, great. So we're off to the next.
I think let me say to Erica, you may have felt it was normal that you were stressed all the time, but it isn't normal to be stressed all the time. And corporations need to take responsibility for the fact that they cannot have the stress level so high that employees are stressed all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which this leads to the next section that Christina mentioned, and the leading indicators of burnout. And what are your challenges in burnout? I'll let Christina, you want to lead some of the feedback you see there?
Yeah, sure. It looks like we have time it takes to make effective changes. It does take a lot of time. This is somebody mentioned before, this is a lifestyle change. It's not something that I would love to be able to say today, here are 5 tips and tricks that you can do today and all of your problems will go away. And while we do have action items toward the end of our presentation today, or later in the presentation today, I don't have, and this is true in any challenge one might be having in an organization. There are no quick fixes. There are band-aids, but I would much rather focus on meaningful impacts and meaningful changes that we can make rather than just quick fixes.
And I think that business owners can make some, but it may be necessary, and we do have 2 assessments. We have one for business owners, so they know what they are or are not doing that can lead to burnout. But we also have an employee one. We obviously don't give the individual results to the business owner. They're confidential, but we can give them the aggregate of the answers. And we do provide and suggest to businesses that they provide some sort of mental health counseling to certain people who have that. And that's why we got involved and partnered with Christina, because her organization does that. So if you need it, they're the best.
That's awesome.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that plug. And what is an organization if not a team, right? This becomes a team effort. So why address employee burnout? Well, because Erica's losing her hair. That's why we're addressing employee burnout. Well, we're addressing this because we just shared some pretty, what I believe and what I think are some alarming statistics, and this is why we're here. That this is something, like I mentioned, this is a public health crisis. This is something that even some of you have been so kind enough and so open enough to share your own personal experiences with burnout and with stress management, and not knowing where to begin and where to start. And that, I believe, was one of the answers before, not knowing where to start, not knowing how to recognize those signs. But this is something that, from an individual level, makes people sick. It makes people chronically sick. And there are things we can do to mitigate that and heal from that, but let's avoid it if we can. I think that's got to be the number. Let's prevent it. Let's not continue to make this something that we are reacting to. Let us make this something that we are taking a more proactive approach to. The productivity and motivation alone cost companies so much, thousands of dollars every single year. And employees who are experiencing burnout, and we mentioned before, the time off, quitting and leaving because they see that an organization hasn't adopted a model that promotes employee wellness and promotes team effort and team growth, and not every person for themselves. And we expect you to, your hours are 9 to 5, but we expect you to clock in at 8 and clock out at 7. Somebody came to me very recently who is in the accounting profession, who went on a job interview, and the person interviewing them came right out and said, yes, our hours are 9 to 5, but really everyone's expected to sign on at 8, and nobody really logs off until 8 p.m. So yeah, but you're expected to work 12-hour days, and that's just how we do things here. And I won't mention the name of the company, but I was appalled to hear that. And so were they. They obviously didn't move forward with any more interviews. They didn't want to hear any more about it. The salary was wonderful. Everything about the job was wonderful until they heard that piece. That is the one reason that they did not move forward. So this really is something we need to look at.
And as we know, if you are in a hiring position, culture is one of the things now that people are looking for. And that culture of teamwork is good and camaraderie is great, but that expectation of way over producing is not a culture that is going to get potential employees to want to work there. So, and of course, we're in the social media world, and people are saying, they can go on Indeed, or they can go on other sites and say, run, don't come here.
So one of the things that I get a sense of from organizations all the time is, it's productivity comes first, getting results, whatever those results are, whatever your industry is yielding results, getting new clients, new business, whatever that means for your organization. That is the priority. And I find that a lot of times when a culture of well-being is not part of company culture, it leads to burnout. And here are some of the symptoms of burnout. And so I want to encourage everybody to reflect on these questions, answer in the chat if you would like to. But how many of you have ever put your self-care to the side for the sake of productivity and said things to yourself like, I'm going to take a break later? Oh, it's my lunch hour. Well, I really have to get this done. I will wind up eating something a little bit later. How many of you have ever said to yourselves, you know what, I have to go to the bathroom, but I really want to finish these 5 things. I'm going to hold it and then I'm going to go. If none of you get anything else outside of this today, never hold it when you have to go to the bathroom. I know we're talking about this and it's, maybe more of a taboo subject, but holding it in increases your heart rate first and foremost. And that causes your fight or flight system to activate. So you're sitting in stress. You are literally sitting in stress all because you have to pee and you're just not letting yourself go to the bathroom. So in and of itself, that is something that I hear people say all the time is, well, yeah, but I'll hold it till the end of the day. The end of the day? My goodness. How many?
Taking mental health days. People,
Mm,
when I first started, we never heard that. But now people say, I needed a mental health day.
yes.
So if you're feeling you need a mental health day, burnout could be an issue.
Burnout could be an issue. And symptoms of burnout, right here, physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. I don't like reading from this. I know you guys are more than capable, but I would encourage you as a part of these symptoms to ask yourself if you ever put your own self-care to the side, or if you notice some of the employees that you either employ or coworkers, people that you work with, people that you hire, did any of them put self-care to the side? Is that encouraged? Have you seen that encouraged in former jobs? Slack and Microsoft Teams, how many people are sending messages outside of work hours? How many times are you waking up and grabbing your phone to check emails? Or how many emails are you getting from other people at 7 o'clock in the morning or 11 p.m. at night? These are small indicators that will lead to that physical exhaustion, that emotional exhaustion, the reduced productivity and motivation and absenteeism and all of these other things.
So we've talked a lot about the symptoms. Now we're getting into the drivers, which is generally within the management structure of
But they're
overwhelming demand.
personal ones and organizational ones.
Yes.
I think, Jim, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jackie. Take it away.
So, overwhelming demands. And as I said before, job layoffs and the expectation of, that everything's going to still happen just the way it did, even though we have 10% less people. Lack of clear job responsibilities or changing job responsibilities as things change within the organization. Micromanagement, gosh. I cannot say, one, how ridiculous micromanagement is, because people who micromanage are causing them their own selves stress because they're feeling that nobody can do it as well as they can, and it certainly is causing stress for the people that work for them.
Yeah,
right?
I think the key there, Jackie, is you have to be a manager. You have to let people do it their own way and their own fashion and be comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable with that, then you shouldn't really be a manager.
Right.
Because everybody does things a little bit different. Sometimes they're a little bit better. Sometimes they're not quite to where you're at. But overall, you have to look at the overall result and what's getting done. And that's what the difference between management and leadership, right? And
Yeah.
we don't need more micromanagers. We need more leaders.
And just because you are good at your job does not mean that you are
Going
have
to
the
be a good
skills for
manager
leadership.
or a leader.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a skill set in and of itself. And one of the important components for understanding burnout is it's a top-down experience. If your manager is running things in a way that can lead to burnout, or if they themselves are burnt out, that trickles down. And Debbie made a comment about a former job that she had, so thank you for sharing that, Debbie, where the management style was fear-based, and that was the main contributor, she says, to burnout.
And that's such a very poor management style. Years ago it was the stick that a generation or two ago, but sticks don't really get you where you want to go, right? That's not the way that you need to do. We also talked about Mark asked, are there times when micromanagement is necessary, such as telling quadrant of situational leadership? So this is all about delegation, and I say that there are multiple layers of delegation, from go take a look at, do the research, come back, and I'll make the decision, to you just take it and do it, and I won't even check in, and there are multiple steps in between. And are there different times when difference occurs? Sure, there are. If the whole company could go down based on a decision, then I don't know, it would be called micromanagement, because that would be watching every little step. Are you using the right software? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? But obviously the final decisions, if the whole company could blow up based on a wrong decision in a certain situation, needs to be that, hey, do some research, come back and let's talk about it, or do some research, come up with some options, and then we'll take a look at those options together and talk about them and come up with a solution, is going to be a better thing to do. So again, look at that definition of micromanagement on Google, because it is not doing the team that I was just talking about. It is definitely controlling every little step that is taking place.
There's a difference between micromanaging and giving directives, and giving directives is important as a leader. If there's a specific procedure within your organization that a new hire or not new hire needs to follow, and it's clearly laid out, step 1, 2, and 3, and they skip step 2, that's a problem. And so going in and saying, hey, we need to do things in this way, which is 1, 2, 3, as opposed to 1 and 3, and skipping 2 causes XYZ problems. A way that I've combated that in my own organization, I am quite a controlling person. I am not going to lie. I'll be transparent with all of you. And I in leadership have had trouble, especially in the beginning, with delegation. I've gotten significantly better than that over understanding myself and through practice. But one of the things that I do is, whenever I bring on somebody new onto my team, is I ask them what their learning style is. I ask them if they are visual learners, auditory learners, or experiential learners. And I ask them questions in interview and in onboarding that would help me understand, if they can't answer that question in and of themselves. Some people are not necessarily the most self-aware, but getting a sense of how they learn, so that I can tailor our training for that person to meet that specific need, so that if I am somebody who teaches by way of verbalizing, but they are learners by way of reading, if they're not learning based on the way that I'm teaching because our styles don't match, it doesn't cause any kind of miscommunication, and it doesn't create any, hovering in that sense. So getting a sense of how the people you bring on learn is a key combatant to that's a good question.
I want to respond to Erica's statement, poor leadership and micromanagement trickle down. And I can tell you that one of the big mistakes, and Jim stated it, is that somebody's really good at their job, so they're promoted to management, and that's okay, but often they aren't given any training. And so they are unable to learn some of the things that we've been talking about. And that's wrong also from a management style.
Coming into employee burnout drivers and coming back a bit to some symptoms that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned as well. Just some common symptoms just for all of your knowledge: loss of appetite, lack of energy or being quick to fatigue, frequent headaches or stomach aches, hair loss, dehydration, muscle fatigue, vertigo and fainting spells, not otherwise explained neurological or cardiological symptoms, memory loss, decreased executive functioning, which includes short-term memory, decision-making, mental clarity, and ability to focus, anxiety or panic attacks, depression, and emotional sensitivity. These are just some of the major symptoms of burnout that I would encourage you all to think about, recognize within yourselves. I know for me, one of the first signs of stress is that my memory does start to go a little bit. My short-term memory in particular, I'll have a conversation with somebody, I'll walk away, and 2 minutes later, just what was it that we just talked about? So it's really important to, in yourself, recognize those early signs and then teach others that you work with, that you employ those same signs as well. And so some employee burnout drivers are interpersonal dynamics, both in the workplace and maybe.
I think, Christina, I wanted to add one, and I think they can read these, but one of the things can be having the person in the wrong role. I was coaching someone, and I came on, and he told me when I started coaching him, I'm having heart palpitations. And I said, okay, before I start coaching you, first thing you need to do is go get a physical, see the doctor. I can help with stress, but if there's other things. And he was in the wrong role, totally the wrong role. So, and that was causing him that stress, which was causing him chest pain.
Sure. And to that point as well, with interpersonal dynamics, have any of you ever hired somebody or brought somebody into your organization that after the hiring process, you realized, or they realized, this just isn't a good fit? And that's a very neutral statement. Not everybody fits in every single environment, and not every environment is conducive to every individual. So that's an important piece too. And we did address that in the onboarding presentation.
Yeah, because hiring, you should be, if you're using a good person to hire for you, they should be benchmarking some of those soft skills and hard skills that are needed for success in a job. And if you don't have them, that's not wrong. It's
right.
just a reality.
It just is.
Right.
It just is. So a question to ask is, how is work-life balance and how is just overall wellness encouraged in the organization that you're currently working in, whether you are the CEO of that organization or not? How is work-life balance encouraged? And work-life balance, all the things that are listed here are personal, and they are something that each individual does need to take accountability for, like unmanaged stress. A manager can't be, rubbing the backs of every single person that they manage and saying,
Please
it's going to
no,
be
please
okay.
no, Christina.
Right.
That's not an
Right.
HR thing that we should be doing ever.
Exactly. That we can't do that. That's a huge no. But managers and leadership can encourage, hey, have you gone on your lunch break yet? Put this down. It can wait until after lunch. Go eat something. Go take a walk. Go to the bathroom, for crying out loud, like I mentioned before. Or that can wait till tomorrow. Instead, encouraging, hey, the day's over, and yes, there's a deadline for this, and we can talk about how to improve the speed at which you get things done at another time, but the day is over. Go home, and then this can wait until tomorrow. We as leaders, and the both myself, Jackie, Jim, and I believe most of you are all in leadership positions. We can encourage that. We can encourage people to be more motivated, to understand that perfectionism is not something to strive for, that doing our best is something to strive for, but that perfectionism in and of itself is a sign of burnout. Somebody who won't stop until they believe it's perfect is just somebody holding themselves to unrealistic expectations that they are never going to meet, and then it's going to turn into a mental health issue. So these are all things to look for in your team and how they are managing for themselves, and then help get them connected to supports that they may need, whether that's an HR or beyond, something human resources can.
Hey, Jim, I think we've probably covered this pretty well.
Okay.
In our statistics. So if we can, I want to make sure that we have time for leveraging AI. AI is really gives us some opportunities, really. And it can be as simple as workload management, getting AI to be able to generate some of the work, but it can be also much more by the feedback and recognition, where it's actually reading emails and tones of voices and recognizing that based on sniping or the fact that somebody asks them a question and they just say no and move to the next, that that there is a potential burnout situation in there.
Absolutely.
Emotional work-life balance, again, getting it set up so there's a way. I have some clients that are saying you've got to be in 1 day a week. However, you need, setting the guidelines and giving them the tools, teams and so forth. And then workload management. There are so many tools, customer relationship management, in big corporations, things that are managing the whole manufacturing process, etc. These are things that if we want to increase productivity and not increase overhead, then we need to invest. But understand that a lot of changes. I was at a meeting yesterday and they said, we got new computers this week. We changed the software for this. We changed the software for that, and nothing is working.
Of course.
And so, doing everything
as you would expect. I mean, that should not be a surprise. That should be expected.
Exactly. However,
and that should not. That's too bad that it's too often. Management looks like, we did this enterprise resource platform upgrade. We're done, and it's like, no, you've just started because you broke all the processes of how people did it before. Now they have to do it a new way, and you've created new problems in the workplace. And now they have to come up with new workarounds because the new software can't do what the old software can do. Now, it did fix some of the problems, but it always will create new problems. And so
Right.
you should be working, you should build a risk mitigation program when you start any kind of IT upgrade of what are you going to do with all the things you break. And then these tools, AI, ML, and RPA, can help relieve where those ERPs, those large mainframe computers, can't do it because it's too costly and therefore it's not practical. And you poured so much money into these large ERP systems, you really now have a challenge in how do you serve the worker? Large ERPs serve the business by accountability. They don't really serve the worker to make their job easier in most cases. That's the beauty of all these new sets of tools that are out there that can be wrapped around the tools that are there or provide insight, like process mining can provide insight into those, what is going on, and then link to sentiment analysis to help you and your organization see what's going on and if you're not getting what you expected to get out of it. So there's a lot of pluses with, we call it now AI. It used to be called digitization. Before it was called innovation. Hey, it's all the same stuff. How can you make it better for the work life of the employee? What's the day in the life of the employee, and enable them to have a reduced stress in the workplace and produce more widgets.
Absolutely.
So
look into this. There are all sorts of different AI. Work with a coach, a consultant. EIG is fabulous on this. They have all sorts of partners that can help you to determine what is the best thing to do based on what you're trying to accomplish.
thank you, Jackie. And we're a little bit over, so thanks for hanging on there. We want to get to this important 5 steps. Christina?
So here are the 5 steps to preventing employee burnout. First, reducing, and then preventing. So first thing, you have to identify the root causes. And Jackie and I, as we mentioned before, collaborated on assessments for organizations as well as for employees, where we provide a comprehensive overview. We'll go over that in a minute. In order to help you identify what the root causes of burnout in your organization can be. It is unique. It could be top down. It could be that one employee that's spreading bad, negative attitude amongst coworkers. That's having an effect on everybody. There's a lot that could be causing burnout in your organization. If one doesn't already exist, creating a positive and supportive work environment. That starts.
Christina, I think we're going to, in the follow-up, we're going to send out a link so that they have the opportunity to take that assessment.
Yes,
the corporate, the one that's corporate organized, and then based on those results, we can they can decide whether in the debrief they want to actually assess each of their people.
Absolutely. It's a great tool for all of you to just get started. And we have to start somewhere, right? Providing support and resources. That could be literature about stress management and stress reduction. That can be workshops, lunch and learns that you bring into your organization. I know Jackie does lunch and learns. Jackie and I together do lunch and learns. I do my organization does lunch and learns and different webinars. It's something that it's a tool that you can use to educate your staff, give them supportive resources and takeaways that they can go and they can start practicing. Other support and resources might include training your own HR departments on how to recognize these signs and start to address these signs, all things that we do in our burnout reduction program. Communication, revamping communication. A common cause of organizational burnout is a poor communication or a communication breakdown within the organization. And one of the leading causes when it comes to poor communication and as it links to burnout is people simply being confused and not having a clear idea of either what they're supposed to be doing, what the mission of an organization is, where to go in order to get their questions answered, or what departments are supposed to connect to each other. Clearing up confusion can pave the way for a burnout-free environment in and of itself.
And for those of you who didn't watch our previous webinar on onboarding, we cover a lot about this in that webinar. So get onto EIG and look at that, an automated way to do that. And that's something that we provide as well, customizable, automated way to do both 4 and 5, create that feedback loop so that you're checking in with them, as well as improving the communication and leadership tactics.
That feedback loop is a loop. It means it has to be cyclical. Employees being able to have an opportunity to provide feedback to leadership, as well as leadership providing feedback to employees. And I do want to give a quick example about this. I was working with an organization, and a mid-level manager had received feedback. They were managing about 20 people at the time, and they were given feedback from the 20 that they managed that they were not spending enough, according to them, one-on-one time with those that they managed. And so when they came to me and said, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do this because I only have so many hours in a day. I do have all my responsibilities, and I want to make sure that I'm showing up in support to my team. And so the solution that we created together was to transparently let those that they manage know that I've heard your concerns. Here is why I have the structure for meetings set up the way that I have them. And to address all of your concerns, I'm going to set a time aside every single week for, I think with that person, we decided on 2 hours of open office hours where people could schedule a 15, 20-minute, 30-minute meeting to address individual needs on an as-needed basis, rather than this person setting aside 20 extra hours a week or 10 extra hours a week to meet with each person one-to-one. So just because you get feedback from somebody doesn't mean that that feedback needs to be implemented so specifically, but we can find ways to address those needs and find creative ways to address those needs.
I think we've talked about this quite a bit. Take a gander, but if they're short assessments, really 31 questions, 12 minutes for the organization, and the employee 24 questions, 10 minutes. And highly recommend that you take charge and do that first one.
And it provides you, where you are.
Right, as to where you are, both as an organization and for the employees. We're not giving diagnoses here, but we're giving an impact on the employee, and you will see what the situation is, the aggregate of all the employees.
Think of this as the mirror on the wall. This is showing you what will come if you if you score high or your employees score high. This is what will occur if you don't address this now. People will continue to be burnt out. Will continue to have problems within your organization when it comes to retention and when it comes to onboarding and a myriad of other things that we've already talked about. And post-assessment, we can meet with you and we do to discuss, here are some strategies to address your unique challenges. Here are trainings that we can either provide or direct you to in order to address some of these challenges. So it's not like a personality test that you take and it tells you, you are this and that's it. The follow-up with that are specific strategies meant for you and meant for your organization. So speaking of things that you can do now, here's a list of things that you can do now. One, on the employee side, it's important to conduct regular surveys and regular assessments. So that doesn't mean the assessment that Jackie and I created. You can give employee satisfaction surveys on a quarterly basis, just checking in with your staff on how they're feeling about their job. Does it feel clear? Do they understand the mission? Do they understand the organizational policies and procedures? How do they feel about their workload and distribution? Do they feel like they're taking
and who to go to when for this, that, or the other thing? You know, kind of understanding where they go.
Right. And provide access to mental health or other types of resources, making sure they know that they can go to HR when they have questions or have issues, or the appropriate department when they have issues or questions. Training managers and supervisors on recognizing burnout in themselves. This is so, unbelievably important. So when you promote somebody into management, provide a training, provide a some kind of a training or some kind of literature on part of leadership is understanding the well-being of those that you manage. And this is how to recognize those signs. This is how to deal with it when, these kinds of things come up. And here's where to pass this on to if it becomes outside of your scope of practice, scope of knowledge. And considering flex work, I always think is good. I know that depends on organization and industry and what makes sense for you and for each individual person. But if you are going to consider flex work or hybrid work, make sure that you provide resources to those people who are going to be at home on ways that they can manage their stress.
And also understand, and this is where Jim would come in, that if you're going to change the flex work, the processes change, and they need to be documented differently. Things are done differently, and you need to get your arms around that.
For communication, regular employee check-ins with management, with each other, even holding a focus group every now and again is a good idea. And then there's recognizing and rewarding employees. So I have been a clinician for about 10 years, and one of the things that we do is behavior modification for children with poor behavior or undesirable behaviors. And the reason that I bring this up is because it is tried, tested, and true that providing positive feedback, providing rewards to, it doesn't matter what age somebody is, to any individual will help promote desired behavior. And that reward does not have to be money. That reward does not have to, people like money, but it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be something super tangible. A thank you goes a long way and I recognize how hard you worked on this project, and I appreciate the time and energy that you've put into this, or I appreciate that you've gone out of your way to learn this new skill set in order to help us as an organization. Doing those kinds of things along with the tangible rewards, such as promotions or raises or whatever's appropriate within your industry and organization, goes a long way, and it improves morale, it improves motivation and things like that. One of the things that I do in my own organization is aside from a holiday party at the end of the year, about 2 or 3 times throughout the year, I set everybody up to go and do an activity together, whether that is axe throwing or whether that is just a company potluck. It just doesn't have to be something that puts a strain on finances, but it's something that promotes, we're a team and we come together, and it's worked very well for me. And whenever I've encouraged other organizations to do it, people notice a shift just in attitude, and that's important.
Hey, Jim, I think we've given quite a few descriptions, so why don't we move to your organization's bottom line?
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think this is really, and you can take a look at the financial impact across the road here, for leaders, it's huge, and productivity loss, company impact, the revenue per sales rep reduction, and company brand value and hiring. We talked a little bit about that. And I think customer satisfaction is one we didn't talk about, and really, if your employees are happy and satisfied, they're going to project a much better company solution and not be upset with customers who are calling in. Your customer is going to be 80% more, have a better opportunity to outperform if from a customer service basis.
Yeah.
So I think
I have to add here, just because I've worked in a lot of call centers over the years.
Yeah.
And you see very high attrition rates in some call centers, and it's typical 20-25%. So within 2 or 3 years, there's nobody there that was there in the past. So it's very typical for call centers because it's difficult work in keeping a positive environment, but yet that's the voice of the organization to the customer. And when those organizations are run well, and you're branding a good product, so to speak, and the product is good, those organizations, the people there last longer, the customers pay sooner, they able to retain customers longer. From a customer retention perspective, good employees, or happy employees, do help drive retaining of customers. It's directly linked. It's not a myth, it's real. So as a leader of a company, you really should be looking at how does all this work together. If you're trying to cut cost on the production floor, it's going to come out in customer satisfaction. It'll push out its way. So all of a sudden you're going to lose customers if your people on the production floor aren't happy. And a lot of folks don't put that all together, and that really causes companies to have the rug pulled out from underneath them.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that kind of wraps up where we were.
Christina, do you have any closing comments before we close it out?
I was going to say, think about the backbone of your organization, which department, which people really hold everything up. And for a lot of industries, when I ask that question, it is the call centers, or it is the reception or administrative team that does the day-to-day stuff that most people in doing their jobs just aren't thinking about because it's just done. And oftentimes it's the most neglected department within an organization. And so a takeaway here, I would say, is you're doing as well as your worst performer, right? So if that department, if that backbone is being neglected, think about what's everybody else doing? How's everybody else functioning? That is where you start. Look at where you have implementing a culture that improves employee well-being and reduces burnout. It takes time, and anything worth doing is not necessarily easy, and it's not necessarily quick. But once you tackle those challenges and create automated systems that just take over, it's something that you don't have to think about anymore. It's just something that's ingrained, and it's just something that is, and it takes on a life of its own. I said before, misery loves company. So does joy and happiness and well-being. Those are also things that like company, like connects with like. So take the time, look at the backbone of your organization and see where you can make improvements and start there.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for sticking in here to 20 minutes after the hour. Thank you so much. Hopefully we covered the topics that you were looking for. You had some of your questions answered, and our deliverables, we will be sending out the slides and the video recording
And a link.
and a link to the assessment. We will be having another webinar on employee retention, most likely in June, the date to be announced. Thank you again, Jackie and Christina, and all the hard work of putting together the webinar. Jackie, a few words before we close out.
Yes. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the power of one, which is if you do 1% increase in revenue, 1% reduction in cost, blah, blah, blah. There is a whole thing. So what I'm saying is start, do something, and you will start to see a compilation of results.
Nice, Jackie. Christina?
Along the power of one, if I had to pick one thing for all of you to take away and do right now as soon as you hang up on this webinar, aside from take the assessment that we've provided for free, is put together, if you don't already have one, an employee satisfaction survey and send it out. They're your people. They're going to tell you.
Nice, nice. So I'm going to keep the theme of power one here. So I'll ask everybody to give up something that they're doing now and give it to someone else, or maybe stop doing it altogether because it didn't need to be done. But go and find something that you're going to stop doing that is causing you stress. So that's my suggestion, Jackie. So thanks for igniting us off into the right direction there to close out the webinar. Thanks everyone for hanging in. Really appreciate it.
Take care, all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.